Welcome back to part 2 of this reaction. I apologize for that inadvertent cutoff at the end of the previous part of this, and that's because I had issues with the iMovie storage. And problem is that, when I edit this video on my Mac, originally the files did upload just fine, but when I tried to export the video for part 1, I had storage run out, and that's why the only thing that was able to export was, fortunately the majority of the first part is there, but that there was like I think it was 4 minutes at the end of that video that were lost. However, I do have the file with me, so I'll add those 4 minutes right now. So let's begin this part 2. Perris, California, rare rapid rail. Yeah, these rapid rails are, these older ones at least, they're rare. It's nice that Matt found one in Paris. This engine sounds pretty good as well. I'll be right back after the following transition. But this rapid rail is pretty nice and good. I can tell you that for now. Alright, my apologies for that pause again. And also just noticed that when I reviewed these footages, whoops, did not mean to do that, but yeah, when I reviewed these footages, noticed that no matter how I set the video sound, it's still louder than my voice. So if I have to make some more pauses, it's for that reason, to make more comments. So I'm very sorry. Alright, so that was Perris, the footage from Perris, California. Back in Santa Margarita, we have Peterbilt front loader. Elliptical as well. Alright, this is going to be interesting. You have cardboard right on top of the dumpster lids. So we'll see if it stays on top of it or not. Yeah, I thought that might happen. It would appear though that at least a little bit of that cardboard did stay on top of the lid, but a lot of it did spill, yeah. That's because as the forks on the arm, are being operated, there's these jolts that cause the cardboard on top of the dumpster lids to become unstable, and they'll fall off like that. Although I like to imagine what the driver's thinking now that that piece of cardboard got stuck on the front window. So again, because the dumpster lids were open this time, there is stuff that's quite on the top of the dumpster. That's why you'll see it spill off because of the jolts. And now that I think about it, a lot of these dumpsters are overfilled. So perhaps that also makes it hard. Now this one wasn't so bad. Most of it made it in except for that one box that kind of went over the hopper towards the rear part of the truck. You can also see another piece of cardboard on the a little bit behind. You know, right where that ladder is in the middle of the truck, you can also see another piece of cardboard that, sorry for the key sounds, but yeah. Alrighty, that is very nice footage. Of course, the front loader. Alright, so now looks like back on to residential. Got an elliptical. Also notice this bin right on the right side of the screen, closest to Matt. Not sure what's going on with that bin, but looks like some paint or something. But anyways. So this is the bin that I was talking about, the one that has some whatever, for whatever reason, gray paints all over. Although, let me see that. Don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with that paint, but oh well. So this truck has pretty nice rev as well. Of course, I think that the older trucks in CR&R's fleet are probably my favorite ones, just because of that. Huh. Well, I don't explain what happened there, but the operator had to restart the truck. Seen that happen in a couple of other videos where they sometimes had to restart the truck for whatever reason, but maybe something stopped working. But you know, it's weird. Huh, this one also has that weird paint for whatever reason. It's an older bin too. There's still some stuff in there. You can see that, right? Right at the top there of the bin. I don't think he noticed actually, but there is some stuff left in there. I'm guessing what happened is that the resident who put the materials in that bin didn't, you know, they probably try to cram it in there, so to speak. And when that happens, sometimes when the gripper of the arm applies pressure to the bin as it tries to collect it, you know, that stuff gets crammed in there, it gets stuck, and you can't empty it. So that's what happens. I've had it happen with my own bins before. And guess what? I had to learn my lesson. So now I try to not to pack the stuff in there. I try to make sure it's free. What I mean is that the stuff doesn't get like crammed in there. It's gotta be, you know, able to empty without any problem. Alright, so I like that. Lip flip without any resistance or reluctance. Well, I definitely like the fact that he's lip flipping now. In the first clip of this truck, he didn't really want to, but it looks like he doesn't mind doing it now. Alright, so some more footage from Perris. I got an octo. So yeah, you notice how those two bins were too close together. Now this driver did a good job at separating the bins without any hassle. But usually when the bins are too close like that, it creates problems when trying to collect the bins. So that's why it's good to have some space in between them. Alright, so this is actually not the same truck. The first one was a Peterbilt. So now we got a different Octo. That one bin looked pretty overfilled if you saw that. Alright, back with the rapid rail. Although this was actually a Peterbilt rapid rail, so looks like the Perris yard has some good trucks out there. Some very nice old ones. Gotta like the fact that this has the older grill. Pretty sure this is the Pete 310. Has to be a 310 if I'm looking at that correctly. So yeah, this is a very, very nice find, especially because 310s are, has been discontinued for decades. Oh yeah, I like the speed on this one. This arm is pretty fast compared to the previous rapid rail we looked at. So definitely bonus points for that. Oh, that's interesting. This bin, well, it is a toter, but the logo on that bin doesn't match the rest of the bins with the CR&R logo. Well, I'm not sure what's up with that. Looks like actually that logo is actually like a sticker, not like actually printed on the bin, but it is CR&R. Alright, Tustin, California once again on the front loader. Alright, this is a newer P520. I know this perspective almost looks like the truck was going to hit the car. No, there's definitely more space though. Which, by the way, I like this perspective from the front of the truck as it collects the dumpsters. Alright, bonus. And guess what we got? An LA sanitation truck. This is what Matt was telling me when he introduced me to this video. So he actually went into LA sanitation territory. Now, this is actually a diesel elliptical, which not too many of those models were purchased by LA Sanitation, but let's take a look. It says Monterey Park, California. I'm pretty sure that's not Monterey Park proper, however, because Monterey Park is served by Athens Services. So this has to be, it's an LA city neighborhood, but that's probably next to Monterey Park. But anyways. Yeah. Give me a moment for this one. What? All right. You see, this is what I like most about this hobby. You find things that you probably wouldn't expect. Now, those who know LA Sanitation, this is nothing new to them. Nothing new at all. This is happens quite more frequently than you think. But yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this would be truck 36870. Now, this truck, I think, used to work out of the West Valley yard for some years before. I'm assuming it was transferred to different yard. Well, this truck got pretty violent in the West Valley yard, and I remember I watched footage of this same truck by different YouTubers, and yeah, I can tell you this arm is pretty violent. The same thing happened I think it was Trash Master 642 who filmed the same truck, and it was actually collecting trash. And yeah, it was pretty violent. So this, it looks like the violentness is still there. This time it's collecting yard waste, green waste, but yeah. So why don't we look at that one more time? So I don't know if Matt helped the driver put the bin back up. That might have been why the skip, but let's see what happens with this one. Well, the exact same thing. Now you'll notice the driver did turn off the auto rev. So I'm guessing he was hoping that would prevent the bin from, falling again, but still violence without the auto rev. So I just think that LA Sanitation is gonna have to tune down the arm a little bit with the speed. Usually this happens when the arm has been in constant use for many years. Well, it doesn't even take many years. Just like the frequent up and down of the arm, when it collects the bins. And so that means that arm starts to get worn off, and over time it starts getting faster, and then becomes violent if nothing is done. And yep, this is indeed 36870, the exact same truck I was thinking of. There's other elliptical diesels from the same series, but they're not as violent as this one. Which, by the way, this makes the video a whole lot more entertaining. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's only a matter of time before the arm gets tuned down in speed. Yeah, because it's pretty much happening with every single bin. Although I don't know, I don't think it's the case, but it might also be a fault on the gripper. The claw itself. I don't know if the claw is not gripping the bins correctly, but from what I could tell, it looks like it is. I just think it has to do with the speed of the arm, because it's practically snapping. Every time that the claw is going over the bend as it brings the bins back down. It's pretty violent. Alright, this one is pretty good. This one, no problem. Although it almost looked like it wanted to also, come off the claw. The only thing that surprises me here is the drivers continuing to operate like this, because most of the time, this would happen when I used to live in Los Angeles, when I used to live at my older home. Usually, the drivers of those routes, if they felt that the truck was too violent, they would try to, when they bring the bin back down, they'll kind of like inch their way out of the hopper, to put it that way. So you're done collecting the bin, so the driver would basically kind of like press the down button, like spamming it almost like that, but to basically make it so that the bin would be lowered without too much violent force. This specific operator isn't doing that, but from what I can tell, he's just doing like the normal up and down. But that's basically like the technique that many operators, you probably saw this with the CR&R footage. Now, CR&R by default has a no lip flip policy, which is why pretty much the majority of the drivers are already doing this technique of inching the pressing the down button, kind of like inching the bin out of the hopper. All right, that was a mouthful. But I hope you understand what I mean. Now, no, mind you, I'm not criticizing the operator in any way. This driver, I do like the way he's operating. It's just that unfortunately, because this arm is too violent, it's causing those bins to fall out of the grabber. So that's why I bring that point up. But I really like the violent nature of the truck, of course. And if I were the one to operate it, I would do it like that too. So yeah, you can see how valiant that truck is. The arm almost lost the bin once again. Yikes. That thing almost went straight into the hopper. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll have to tune down this arm, unfortunately, but it's as entertaining as this is, but we just can't have too many hoppered bins or too many, flying bins. Yeah, so you can probably see the operator did try to use that technique of like spamming the down button on the arm. But I guess, he probably pressed it a little teeny bit too much. Alright, so that one worked pretty well. He did turn off the auto rev. Also, that lid is torn from one of the hinges. Alright. Sorry for the pause again. Alright, so that footage was pretty interesting, like I said. I'll mention more at the end. For now, looks like we also have a P320 CNG unit from LA Sanitation. Let's see. Whoops. Yeah. Well, gotta say, this arm also slams the lids pretty nicely too. Let's see what happens here. Alright, looks like the operator did get off to pick up the green bin. Alrighty, what do we got here? Okay, this is a 520 CNG unit. Looks like this one's collecting recycling, but the bin, though, a little bit troubled there. Well, that was good work. Definitely a good operator put the bin back up. Looks like I had to do it twice. Yeah, that's a pretty nice violent arm as well. Oh, you even got some early morning footage as well. That's pretty cool. Well, that was a pretty interesting way the bin ended up in the hopper. Well, not in the hopper. What I meant was interesting way that the grabber handled that bin. Looks like the reason for that is because there's a crack in that wall of the bin. Look at it closely. The grabber is actually stuck in the crack itself. So yeah, let's see how the operator handles this situation. Alright, not too bad. Sometimes I've seen videos where the driver has trouble getting the bin out of the crack, the grabber out of the crack in the bin. This one didn't take too much of effort, but other drivers have had to struggle with it a lot more. Alright, so I believe he did put the bin back up there. That's why you heard the ear brake. Not sure if that bin got tagged. I would have hoped that the driver would have put a tag on that bin to get it replaced. Customer has to replace the bin with a new one. Wow. Looks like we're having a lot of issues with the bins here. To be honest. Yeah, looks like some of the green waste was stuck in that green bin. Well, it's good that the driver decided to pick up the spilled leaves. Like I said, not a lot of drivers like to get out of the truck and pick up the spills. All right, that signboard reminds me of a similar signboard I used to see when I used to film LA sanitation trucks a couple years ago. It's not the exact same one, but the colors on that one reminded me of one that used to be on the trucks on my old route. Alright, this is interesting. The bin is really close to the car. Now, it's always interesting why people put them too close to the car. I don't know why they do that. They should have some space in between the car. Or otherwise, that just makes the driver's job a lot more difficult than it really needs to be. I mean, they could have put that bin a lot more further, ahead. They didn't need to put it right there. See. Alright, you are welcome for watching, Matt. Got a whole lot to say here, but this is an old hobby I used to do myself on the main channel, Railfanner Productions. I no longer do it just because I lost interest in it, but yeah, I definitely got some nostalgia just watching this. It's a lot of really good footage in this compilation, but probably my favorite was, if you were talking about CR&R, my favorite was probably the let's see. It's a lot of good things, but I would say I think the octos that CR&R had in the route in Perris, those were pretty good. And that one truck with the zippy belt was pretty interesting. I think it was elliptical. Mentioned that one. The rapid rail trucks were pretty good too, especially because they're pretty older model. And front loader footage pretty decent. I do like seeing front loaders operating as well. It would have been nice to see a bulky item pickup, but I don't think that was around at the time of the filming of these clips. That's not a problem, of course. Now, the LA sanitation footage was pretty impressive. My favorite, of course, being the elliptical diesel number 36,870. That was probably the most entertaining truck of the LA sanitation trucks that Matt's found. Yeah, I really like it's pretty violent and lots of bins like falling out of the grabber. Definitely made this a lot more fun, even though, yeah, I'm pretty sure that arm is going to get tuned down. Then, these other trucks are pretty much CNGs. Pretty much that's what LA City is running at the time. There's still some of the older LNG ellipticals from 2011, 2012. But yeah, definitely the city's moving towards, these newer model vehicles. As a matter of fact, I don't know if Matt noticed this, but the city already retired most of its octo diesels from the fleet. Yeah, LA Sanitation already bought some newer LNG 520 units, which are pretty much phasing out the diesels, the octo diesels. It's sad to see them go, but, LA Sanitation has their clean fuel agenda. They also got an electric Mac LE elliptical, full battery electric unit. It's the only one in their fleet at this time. And from what I've heard of it, the battery has to be recharged a couple times every day. So there's not it's not a whole lot of electrics currently being planned at this moment. I think the city wants to purchase electrics once the battery life is more extended. But, just some fun facts out there. The Mac LE electric is going to be out there. But, yeah. It's very good that Matt caught the diesel elliptical while it was still around. I'll definitely miss that unit from service as well. Alrighty, well, I think that's all I got to say for this video. Pretty impressive results for sure. The filming quality is pretty good. Definitely very professional grade footage. So yeah, check out more of Matt's content as it comes out. I'm pretty sure this is just one of many more videos that Matt has planned for this channel, at least with regards to the garbage trucks. Check out his main channel at RX Metzi at Railfanner for the training footage. We've already reacted to a couple of those videos, and there should be more. But yeah, I enjoyed watching this. Like I said, definitely give Railfanner 125 a thumbs up on this video. And yeah, we'll be back for more. Thank you so much for watching this reaction video, and I hope to see you again in the future. Much more to come in 2025. So peace out, and send me your requests as always. I definitely enjoy watching other people's content, so we'll definitely keep our eye out on new requests. So thank you and goodbye.